Welcome to another Good Dads podcast. This is The Difference a Dad Makes. It's one of our new series, and we welcome in Brian.
Yeah.
Hello, you are leading the way, so I'm going to let you introduce our guest today.
Yes, we have Rudy Martinez, who's the director of the Springfield Conservation Nature Center. He's been out there for 20 years. Is that right, Rudy?
20 plus. I lose track. 24 years.
Man.
It's been a while. I really enjoy it.
Rudy.
Yeah. I hear that once in a while.
I had to.
I believe it.
One of the greatest football movies of all
Yeah.
time. I'm sorry. I had to give you like a welcome. I felt like I just needed to.
I feel very welcome.
Okay,
Thanks for
good.
inviting me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Glad to have you.
So, Brian, before we get started, just tell us a little bit about how you started the series and how we're going to incorporate Rudy today.
Yeah, so this is the intentional dad, and so we're talking about just the importance of dads being involved and engaged in their kids' lives, and why it's important to take the steps to be involved and engaged, and what that looks like, and how to do it, and what the benefits are for the whole family.
Awesome. So I know you'll have a lot since you're at Missouri Conservation, but first, tell us a little bit about your boys and your experience of being a dad, Rudy.
So, married with two boys who are 14 and 17, and the time just flies, as I was alluding to earlier. And but it's different every year, and it's such a learning experience being a father to two boys, or any kids, in fact, from day one when they're born. As an infant, you're constantly learning, but you can see in the eyes of your child when they learn something new, from the moment they're born through their teens, where my boys are now. And, I've loved every minute of it, and I'm learning from them just as much as they learn from myself. So,
how are the teen years? And I ask that because I know Brian has a 6 and 4-year-old. I have a 6-year-old stepdaughter and one on the way. What do we have to look forward to, Rudy?
It's all good, I hear.
Yeah. Right. So it's different, obviously, but teen years, I think more, the way I like to look at it is each child has their own personality, and there's challenges, but there's also, a new, fresh outlook on life that you see through your kids. And as a teenager, they're becoming young adults, and you can see where they're going to be going in some regards, as a young adult. And, you plant the seeds early on in life, and now you're starting to see some of those, sprout. And it's very gratifying to see some of those things that you've instilled in your kids, during those teenage years. So it is challenging at times. I have two boys that are complete opposites. I mean, they really are. One of them's just chill, calm, just easy going. We just seem to not have any problems with them, And then we have the other, very different personality. Again, it's the personality. And he's different in the sense that he's much more social. He needs that social interaction. And me, my wife and I mean, we're a little bit different. She's probably a little bit more social than I am. But you wouldn't know that from my job, because I'm around people all the time, and I thoroughly enjoy that. But you see those challenges in your two kids, and so...
I had a friend once tell me, because I asked him this, because he's another intentional dad that I was, you always want to ask other dads how they're doing that, or ahead of you in the game of life. And he was saying, it's not like it's harder, it's just different. Every kind of age range is its own set of challenges. And he's like, when you get to see a kid excel at something that they love, it's different than like, let me show you how to get this fruit snack out of the pantry. It's like, they're doing something that they love.
That can be challenging at times, though.
Yeah. Sometimes
that could be a sport, depending on
stools.
Yeah, how you get up there, how you can, get in through the child locks.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a sport.
But I will say, I'm not looking to speed up time and get any teens earlier than I need to. I'll enjoy what I got right now.
So, Rudy, we ask a question to all of our guests. It's a very important question to our dads, and that is, which child do you like better?
Didn't expect that one.
Well, it would have been worse if he had just spit out one of the names real fast, wouldn't it?
Actually, I don't think we've ever asked that question, so you're good. You don't answer that.
Yeah, don't answer that. Plead the fifth here.
So I'll start with this. So obviously you're in conservation. You're outdoors a lot. Do your children kind of follow that lead, or because I have a feeling like sometimes like you might have a couple kids that are like, I want to do exactly the opposite of my dad, or I really want to embrace, I want to do all of this stuff. Do they kind of follow your lead as far as like the outdoors?
Well, I have to admit, my wife and I are both passionate about outdoors and nature, so they get it from both sides. Mm-hmm. So it's a lost cause to start with. However, they do have their own, like I said, their personalities, but their own interests. So I have one who just loves to fish. Just absolutely loves it. Any chance he gets. I mean, he makes his own fishing reels and rods out of anything. He's very creative. Then I have my other who loves to catch. So we go fishing, he wants to be catching fish. He's not going to be having a good time if he's not catching fish. So it's my job to provide the best opportunity for him to catch fish. Yeah. The other one, he's fine on his own. He'll just go exploring. If he doesn't catch fish, he'll put the rod down, do other things. But I have to keep the other one kind of entertained a little bit more. Sure. So yeah. So
trout parks a lot with that one.
Yeah, There's a lot of pre-fishing, if you will.
Rudy was telling me that they go hand fishing, noodling.
No, yeah,
right?
No.
I was like, no.
Why don't you go noodling with those catfish?
I got a lot more questions for you now.
As a matter of fact, that's our field trip today, Brian. Rudy's going to take both of us noodling for.
It's like
not in Missouri,
a mini series. Is that outlawed, right?
In Missouri, there's other states where there's opportunity for that legally.
Right.
Yeah.
Arkansas? Can you do that in Arkansas?
I don't know, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I know you can, but there's some restrictions as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting
not
sport.
Missouri.
Very interesting sport.
Is that a sport?
No, it is.
I guess.
Now you enjoy the outdoors with your family.
I do, and I bet you Rudy is very similar to this. I grew up with an outdoorsman father, and so I grew up hunting and fishing, and I hated it because I felt like I had to go with Dad. And so, but I learned to enjoy being in nature, and I have parts of both of your sons in me, whereas like it might have been fishing for 15 minutes, but it felt for like 2 hours because I hadn't gotten a bite. And now as I'm older and I'm going like deer hunting with my family that I've been doing year after year, and I don't see anything, it's because I'm not paying attention, because it's all around me, and I'll watch raccoons come home. Yes. I'll watch squirrels playing. Absolutely. I'll see turkeys come roost over my head. And so I got both of that, but I learned to love it from my dad encouraging me to be outdoors. Is that how you got into it as well?
Oh, certainly. Yes. And all those things that you mentioned, I mean, I can certainly relate. And I think oftentimes, we miss the overlying message where, so for example, like we're going out deer hunting. Well, that's like an excuse just to get outside. Mm-hmm. Because like you mentioned, you see all these other things going on in nature, and it's the experience. And when you take somebody new hunting and they experience that, they realize it's like, oh yeah, I would have never seen all of this, had you not taken me, for example, to introduce me to this new sport. And that's what my dad did. I mean, so growing up, we didn't have a lot, but the outdoors were always there for us. And we took advantage of that, as not just my brother and I have 5 sisters. So it's a large family, but we historically, oftentimes would go to a state park and we would make it a family event. We'd grill out, play Frisbee or softball, fish at the same time and go back and forth. It'd be an all-day event. So we were all together, but outside doing multiple things, not just fishing.
Yeah. Do you think, do you see that foundation of being outdoors leading to you being curious about the natural world in general and curiosity as an aspect of growing and learning?
Oh, absolutely. Because I feel like if you just provide that opportunity to be outside to anyone for, a certain amount of time, say you get bored just sitting there, you're going to start noticing things around you, whether you realize it or not. So that opportunity is there, and people will take advantage of it, whether they want to or not. And sometimes that's all you have to do is provide the opportunity.
This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week, we'd like to thank the following: Harry Cooper Joplin Supply, Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Susan Biney, Midwest Auto Source, Basis Financial Group, SMC Packaging. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission.
I know that, and you'll get used to this, Jay. I mean, I'm sure you do with the 6-year-old, but the trying to get your kids to watch the right kind of TV. So my kids started getting into like watching these guys go search for snakes outside. They would just go walk in nature and find snakes. And my son loved it. And I was like, we can do that. Like, we can just go walk on a path and flip over a few rocks and see what we find. And we were out at Lost Hill Park, north of town. Is that what it's called? I think it is. Yeah. And it was early in the season, like early April, not much activity going on yet, maybe late March even. And we got to this mound of leaves and a rock, and I ended up flipping over a rock and finding a tiny little ringneck. And he was right there with me, and he got to hold it. And ever since then, he's like, when can we go out searching for animals again? And so now he's just eaten up with any sort of nature and animals. And so now I'm like, he's gotten into Pokemon, let's be honest. But I'm like, are you sure you want to watch another Pokemon video? Or do you want to watch this guy collecting fish out of a river in Japan or that guy looking for snakes?
Yeah, no, I saw that. I've got to get back to my cards.
He's like, yeah, but look at that Charizard.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, not another Charizard video.
Right. Exactly.
But he got curious because he got to experience it. And that was the thing. And so being experiential in nature led to his curiosity moving forward in the natural world. And so now he loves being outside. Anytime that we can have an excuse to go to the nature center or another park, when it's warm, we go up there and we'll just walk into the water and we'll hunt for crawdads for hours. And he just is like, this is his jam.
Yes. That's great to hear.
So you kind of hit upon this a little bit, but for those people who maybe don't know too much about the outdoors or want to start to get into it, what would you suggest someone to start with? Or are there like small activities that maybe dads or parents can do with their kids to kind of ease their way into the outdoors?
There are. And so if somebody's interested in just learning more about nature with their kids, I would start small. So for example, around your home, just walk around your home exploring. That's what I did when I was a kid. We were outside all the time. So a prime example would be if you find a brick, like around the landscaping or near the sidewalk, there's a brick. During the warmer months of the year, just turn that brick over. And I like to get down and dirty and look. I mean, I'll get on my hands and knees, and you get your kids crawling down with you, and you're like, it's almost like Christmas, you're opening a gift, and then you see a grub or a slug. There might be a little wolf spider or a worm. I mean, occasionally a salamander. I mean, you don't know. So it's just full of excitement because you're finding all these little things, and it's like a micro habitat, and you're close up, just inches away from it, and if your kids are into it, you'll know immediately, because they see these little things crawling around. And then just encourage it. Walk around the edge of your home.
I could just see our 6-year-old now going, that's gross, and running away. And me going, you get back here, and you love this grub. All right? You have to know that I want you to pick it up, chase that salamander.
So that's the thing. Children, they're absorbing everything. They're like sponges from us. So how we react is how they may react as well. So you have to be a little careful. I mean, you may not like slimy worms, which that's okay, but allow them the opportunity to make that decision on their own. So for example, oftentimes I'll hear, well, let me just step back a moment. So we teach a lot of educational nature center programs, and a very popular one is on snakes. And when we see an audience come in, we always ask questions and just to get a feel for the audience. And one question we ask is like, how many of you are afraid of snakes? And, they'll raise their hand. And that fear of snakes is oftentimes a learned behavior from adults. And it's learned at an early age from the time they're just crawling around. So we just need to be mindful of that. When we're around kids, they're learning everything. And if you want to provide that opportunity, just be mindful of how you're going to react to it too. You may hate worms and slimy things. Go ahead and pick a worm up and
see. I love them. They're fine. I want you to talk to my wife. Is there any way that you could do that? Because she freaks out about this stuff, and then our 6-year-old sees her freaking out, and it's like, hey. And I always try to tell her, I'm like, it's fine. I'm like, it's not gonna bite you. Yeah, this thing's gonna be fine. Like I will say though, I've been doing this thing, and I'm sure that everyone's tried this. It's not like I'm the OG of this. But if there's bugs like in her room or anything like that, I go, do you want to know why that is? And she's like, why? And I'm like, because there's food or you're not picking up trash.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so if you don't want bugs in your room, you will not have any kind of food laying around or some trash. Man, that's worked so far. We're going to keep it going.
That's good.
That's the bug bond that we have had so far, where she doesn't like them. And I'm very calm about it, but my wife isn't. So it's just like, that's a really good point though.
But it doesn't have to be about bugs either. So like this time of year, well, not today, but like 2 days ago with all the snow on the ground, just throwing some bird seed out in the yard. It doesn't have to be in a bird feeder. If you have a bird feeder, great. But if you just sprinkle bird seed on the snow, for example, or in the driveway, somewhere in your yard, during the winter months, you're going to attract the birds. And you can enjoy that from indoors. And if you show a little bit of excitement about it, your kids may as well. Just a couple of days ago, we had a flock of starlings land in our yard. And one of my teenagers, who's a little impatient, he called me over. He's like, Dad, look at all these birds, because he knows I love birds. But it was nice to see him to initiate the conversation on that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So. Yeah, I know that it's really interesting to watch on the parenting perspective. My wife hated snakes forever, ever. Oh my gosh, she just couldn't even look at pictures of them, And she's gotten to the point now in this parenting journey, like it changes you more than you change them, probably, right? And so,
because you're aware of what you're doing, kind of like that,
but also it's like watching your kid have joy on something or discover something, like you were talking about earlier. It's like, oh, that is the best feeling in the world. So now, like I'll see, like we were out doing gardening maybe a year ago, last fall even, and I found a little snake, and she's like, she normally would have screamed and ran inside, and she goes, oh, can you get a picture for Jack? Can you get a picture to show Jack? And I'm like, who are you? Like 5 years ago, you would have run off or like said, kill it. Now she's like, oh, go try to get a picture for Jack. I'm like,
just shows we'll do anything for our kids.
I know. We're weak. Yeah. We are weak, aren't we?
That's the new subject of this podcast. We are weak.
This is a counseling session, really.
Thank you so much. Now, you were talking a little bit, too, about taking some good hikes. So, obviously, you take it in, but just to keep on moving through nature as well, just in case you do get impatient, kids or even adults. If you're moving, I'm sure that helps too. And especially with the sun shining today, just get a little sunshine.
Yes, for sure. And if you're hiking, for example, you're going to be seeing different sceneries, maybe different wildlife, water, aquatic resources like creeks, ponds, and lakes. If you can go somewhere that has water, some type of water feature, that you just see so much more. Yeah. So I always encourage that. So if you can take a hike, even just walking around a pond, and it can be like a city park or something like that, where there's a pond like Nathaniel Green locally, you're going to see a lot more wildlife, So it doesn't necessarily have to be a long hike. As your kids get older, you can, hike longer trails. Like at the Nature Center, we have almost 3 miles of trails. we ask everybody to stay on the trails to protect the resource. You go to other places like Busick State Forest, another conservation area, you can get off the trails and explore a little bit more. Right. The trail's a little bit more rugged, but just kind of know, in advance what you might be getting into.
Do you, so kind of going into that, is camping kind of the next step, which you say that and it's almost like split. There's a lot of people like, oh yeah, I love camping. And there's another people like, I'm not going to be in a tent. Like I have to be in a hotel. I have to be in some kind of cabin with running water.
Does that have a shower in that tent?
Right, exactly. Do you have to go all the way into the deep end of camping, or do you suggest something for new campers, Rudy?
So buy all the equipment you can. That way you're prepared. So oftentimes we, as parents, when our kids are, toddlers, we may buy those small indoor tents for the kids to play with. Start small, start indoors, and that's a good segue to the outdoors. Have your kids sleep in the tent on the floor,
put it up like in the house.
And then just do what you feel comfortable doing. So my kids camped in the backyard, I don't know how many times. It's a safe environment, but that gives them an opportunity to take ownership of it in setting up their own tents, gathering what they think that they need, as far as food, blankets, sleeping bags, or whatever. It's fun just to see them get different supplies and take it out there. And, there might be too many bags of chips, but, as parents, sometimes we just want to step in and it's like, no, don't do it this way. Or, how about you do this? And, you don't need that many cookies tonight, So, but it's good to allow them to take that ownership and make mistakes. It's okay for kids to make a mistake, in a controlled environment, and even as an adult to allow them to make those mistakes, and give yourself some grace too, to make some mistakes occasionally, as you're learning.
And one thing I love about camping is that we live in a pre-programmed world where we know everything in advance. Like we know where everyone's located at in the family on our cell phones. We can text anybody if we have a question at any time. We can, our location and communication is open wherever we are in the world. And so when you go camping, it's like, it's pre-programmed a little bit, but sometimes when you're camping, it's just like, hey, we have 4 hours where we don't have anything to do.
Good way to unplug, kind of.
Yeah. Let's fill that. Well, yeah, good way to unplug, but also, how are we going to fill that time? Because we're not watching TV. We're not on our phones. What do you want to do? Do you want to throw a football? Do you want to go on a hike? Do you want to build a fire? Do you want to collect? My kids are at the age 4 and 6 where they like collect it. They have collections. And so Jack's like, I'm going to find as many acorns as I can. And then, so then we're trying to say, okay, how can we, maybe expand upon this learning and create a little more like, what do you notice about these acorns? Are they all the same kind of acorns? Are they different acorns? And then, I always say, if you're going camping, make sure you got enough snacks. Okay, because everyone needs a snack when you're camping. I learned that from my wife. Yeah. Okay, so I didn't pack enough snacks the first time we went. Kids? Yeah, I didn't pack enough snacks the first time we went camping. She's like, "Hey, get some snacks for the road trip and camping," and I got like a bag of apples, and she's like, "Who are you? I'm not a horse. Okay, just get some chocolate."
My kids learned that early on the snacks. They just pack everything.
And the thing I love about camping in the backyard is that it didn't really cost anything or any extra time, and that is an experience my kids, because we've only camped about 3 times. The first time was still a traumatic experience in my son's life because I woke up at like 5:30 and went inside to make a pot of coffee because I was the only one that made it the whole night with him. And he woke up while I was inside making coffee, and then I came back out and he was just crying at the door of the tent. I'm like, no, I didn't go anywhere. I'm right. I'm literally 10 steps away. Yeah. So he says, remember that time you left me when we were kids? I'm like, come on, buddy. I didn't leave you. But, but the other times we've gone camping, like I'll make a little campfire and we'll roast some marshmallows, and then we'll, just sit by the tent and just look up outside, at 8:30 when it's dark. And so like they'll still talk about that. And all that was 30 minutes of setting up a tent with the kids and throwing some sleeping bags and some cots down. And we had an experience that was like, we waded into the waters of camping before we went.
Like a trial run.
Yes, exactly.
Like to make sure that they're okay with it, because you don't want to drive 2 hours,
well,
go in the woods and then set it up, and then like you got to leave in the middle of the night.
I learned this because the first time we went camping, we went all in. It was like October. We were going to have Dorothy in like 2 months. And we went to Bennett Springs, and it was cold, and he had never been camping before. And so he was really excited. And so we had a little lantern in our tent, and we're all sleeping in there and bundled up, and it's cold. And we were like, are you tired, buddy? He's like, yeah, I'm real tired. And we read the book, and we turned the light out, and then he was wired. I mean, he was literally just rolling around the tent. We're like, you know what? When Dorothy comes, why don't we camp in the backyard so she gets used to this before we jump all in. But there's something magical about sleeping outside.
Yeah,
you know?
there sure is.
And you don't get to do
We've
that
been
much.
camping quite a bit, especially when they were younger. You know, it's just easier to pack them up and just hit the road. And I remember this one time we went camping, and they invited a couple other friends. We had our gear and everything, but they decided, after watching, you know, these different survival shows, they decided they wanted to build a lean-to. And they did, between the four of them, because both my boys invited 2 other kids. They built a lean-to, and I inspected it because they really wanted to sleep under it. And I was like, I wouldn't sleep under that. But I was like, okay, go ahead. If it falls on you, I mean, it wasn't super heavy wood or anything like that. And it's like, okay, it's a risk, but I'm going to allow it. And they slept under it. I was shocked. They slept under it, all 4 of them. They were squeezed under there. It wasn't a huge lean-to or anything.
I love that.
And yeah, just a memory they'll always remember with their friends. And that's the other thing I've noticed now that they're in their teenage years, to pull them away from the digital world and some of the other school activities they're involved with. It's a little bit more challenging. However, I found that when we do some of the things like going outdoors, things that I really love doing, fishing trip or whatnot, or canoe trip, if they invite one of their friends, it makes the biggest difference. And on top of that, again, another one of those gratifying moments is when I see my boys teaching their friends on some of the things that I've taught them about nature. So that's
awesome.
I love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the biggest memories that you have, I mean, well, me personally, is being in the outdoors, or we caught this big catfish on this fishing trip, or we had this camping trip where, and even when it's, you know, kind of what you were saying, even when it's kind of a funny, disastrous story, it's still memorable.
Yeah.
And it's something you can laugh about.
Family lore at that point, you know?
Exactly. All right. In closing, is there anything we missed, or anything that you guys would like to tell other dads about, you know, getting outdoors and just some basic experiences for people who are wanting to do more outdoor activity in a very digital world right now?
Yeah, it is obviously challenging. I mean, I have the same challenges with our kids, to get them away from those electronic devices. And you know, there's no good solution necessarily, because again, every child's different, their own personalities. But the one thing I always recommend, at any age, especially when they're younger, as far as getting outside and playing, is number one, you're both going to make mistakes. I mean, that's okay, you know. And 2, it's okay to get dirty. Because as a parent, I do it myself, you know. And
you gotta talk to the moms about that one.
We all do it. We all do it. But especially on Sundays, you know, it's like, you know, they're off running through the grass, but you know, it's okay to get dirty, you know, and that's what kids do. That's what kids do. And we just have to be mindful of that. We have to remind ourselves as adults and parents, you know, to allow that exploration of the outdoors, whether it's in your yard or anywhere else. It's okay to get a little dirty, and also take some calculated risk, you know, and you know what those would be when you're outside.
Yeah, and I think it goes along with that and what you were talking about, taking your older boys and they built their own structure. I think in the modern world, we have lost a lot of critical reasoning skills, or like diagnosing a problem and figuring out how to solve it rather than just Googling it. And when you're outdoors, you don't have anything else to lean on. Like, how are you going to figure this out? And that is a whole different kind of critical thinking skill that you don't get unless you're in the middle of it, getting dirty, or can I sleep in this structure tonight? Is this going to, shade me from the elements? And if it doesn't, you're going to have to fix that in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen a lot in today's society. We don't figure out how to fix problems. We just buy a new thing.
Right. Even setting up a tent. Is my tent going to hold up tonight? And if you make a mistake, it's going to fall in. You're going to be in the middle of the night. Where's my
and
flashlight?
how do you fix it? Like, it's almost like
Problem
the engineering,
solving.
problem solving, and everything else, which is what they do on the show Moonshiners when they're making liquor in the woods. They try, if there's a hole in the still,
not going to work.
Flowing, they got to figure that out, which is going to be our next episode with Rudy Martinez. No, we got a different person
We got another guy for that,
the local moonshiner. Rudy from the Springfield Nature Center and Missouri Conservation, of course. Brian, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys.